Hello and welcome. We are live as we are just about every Sunday. Thank you for joining me and welcome. We're going to just chat about G.I. Joe Classified and related stuff for about an hour as we normally do. Today I'm just going to talk about, there's a couple things I want to talk about. One being it's a bit of a curveball. It's not sort of directly classified related, but the G.I. Joe Classified book one, the sort of young adult novel that is to be released in the summer. I'm going to just sort of give you my thoughts on it and just sort of lead a little bit into a discussion about, media connected to classified. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of pre-orders, but not maybe in the way that you think. Now, if you're watching, say hi in the comments, so I know who I'm chatting with. Hey, David, how's it going, buddy? Haven't talked to you in literally a couple hours. But it looks like there's a few people watching, so let me know who's watching because it just makes it easier, and then the discussion's more fun when I know sort of who I'm talking to. Otherwise, it's just me rambling on for about an hour about nothing that anybody cares about. So. But anyway, let's get into it. The first thing that I wanted to talk about, just because it came up, and it's now available for pre-order anywhere you pre-order books. I've pre-ordered it, and I've pre-ordered it because You know, I have you know, kids that are of the age where I'm reading books to them. We've started into sort of chapter books, and so this is just right up my alley. This made perfect sense. She's into GI Joe. She's into books. So I got one of these on order. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but you know, I know it's not for everybody. Hey Tyler, how's it going, buddy? I haven't chatted with you in a while. You either, Rick. It's good to have you guys here. Um, but hello, welcome. Comment away. Fire away with questions, comments. If you think this book looks ridiculous and silly, let me know. Um, but anyway, the synopsis for this book, I'll just quickly read it and you know, feel free to like let me know what your thoughts are. When Stan's mom gets the job offer of a lifetime at a cutting-edge tech company, Stan packs his bags and exchanges Chicago for Springfield, home to the secretive tech behemoth Decobre Industries. Sounds fishy. Saying goodbye to big city life is only the first challenge Stan faces in moving to Springfield, a town that's entirely under the thumb of his mother's powerful employer. Decobre has its hands in everything, including the Lyre XR augmented reality headsets that Stan and his fellow students at Springfield Academy are asked to beta test. And then it goes on and on. I won't bore you with it because it's clearly a young adult novel. It's clearly not going to be I mean, I'm kind of into it just because it's a GI Joe novel. I definitely don't think that it's going to be on the level of most of the books that I read, but I'm looking forward to it. Um, but it got me thinking about the you know, we had the book, or sorry, we have this book coming. We had the video game come out. Um, there's sort of a rumored or an in pre-production cartoon, which I don't know how closely it's going to tie to Classified. We've had Snake Eyes pop up in Fortnite. We had Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow pop up in some random game called Brawlhalla. We had the GI Joe game, which I can't even remember the name of, which you know, was like a phone or iPad type game, similar to I think it's called Boom Beach or something like that. Anyway, so there's all these things that keep popping up that are sort of GI Joe related in terms of different media, in terms of different um, avenues that I think, you know, Hasbro and sort of the GI Joe marketing team are trying to get people into the brand by way of different media. In the same way that, you know, as you know, I got into it as a kid through the cartoon, others got into it through the comic book. The comic book's still going. The comic book's still going strong. You know, we've still got you know, a little less than a year of IDW having the title and the license before it goes somewhere else. I'm sure it'll go somewhere else, and they'll pick up either where they left off, or they'll just sort of start something fresh, something new. And comic book seems to be a good one. But I'm curious. You know, I think most of us were sort of GI Joe fans before the Classified line came out. What do you guys think about, you know, these sort of pathways for people to get into GI Joe? Is it just impossible? Like, is GI Joe a brand that is recognized only by people that sort of recognize it from their own childhoods, or is there the possibility that there's sort of, you know, an increase in the popularity if they could get a movie right, or if this book was popular, or if the TV show could come out and be really good? I'm just sort of curious what everybody's thoughts were on that. You know, like I said, I'm getting, you know, my kids love the cartoon. They love the figures, both vintage and classified. And we're gonna get this book and read it for better or worse. My 6-year-old actually plays the game with me a little bit. The game's not that great, and you know, she's not that great at video games, being 6. Um, but it's just fun. I mean, it's just a different sort of avenue for us. Um, Tyler said Indigo chapter states that 1% of proceeds go to high needs communities through Indigo Love of Reading Foundation, so it's for a good cause. Just FYI. Yes, I didn't know that. I ordered through we have a local bookstore that's been around for like my whole life in Kelowna, so that's where I always order my books. But Facebook user who may be Rick, I don't know because it just says Facebook user. They could market a lot better and definitely make a movie verse like Marvel has done. The problem with that is up until recently when they were making the movies through Paramount, the executive producer um, basically said he didn't want to do a shared universe. He said he didn't really understand why anybody would want to do that. I don't know who this guy is or why they sort of signed him up for this, but I thought he was so wrong to say that because you look at you look at Marvel, you look at Star Wars to a lesser extent, even DC. I mean, at least they were trying to sort of have some movies tie together. I think the DC animated universe is maybe a better example because they have movies that sort of continue and sort of um, they sort of they sort of go one into the other. There's sort of a natural progression there. But why wouldn't you want to do a shared universe? And I think out of that shared universe you could have the for better or worse what Star Wars does, which is tie in the comic books and the books and the anything live action. They try to tie it in. Now they don't always do all of it that well, but at least they're trying, right? So David said, even though the book is geared for young adults, it sounds interesting. It's a great way to get younger people into the G.I. Joe franchise. Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And I think, I also think that it's a clever avenue too, because when you sort of introduce kids to G.I. Joe through a video game, you're appealing to kind of the video game crowd. And I don't know that the video game crowd is necessarily the book crowd, but I do think that the book crowd is kind of a more tactile crowd in a way, in the sense that maybe they sort of prefer the physical, right, to the virtual, in the sense that maybe they're more inclined to play with toys and sort of um, reenact what they sort of read through in their book, or at least that was my thought, but I could be wrong. I'm not a child psychologist. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but Dean says if they had high-end movie or TV series or new cartoon or a great video game, easy peasy to pull new kids in, but they just keep missing the mark. Yes, I think you're absolutely right, and I wonder if it's just they just picked the wrong people. Like I said, I think the guy's last name's Bonaventura, but I can't remember his first name. He just, when I heard an interview with him, he clearly was just not the right guy. He just didn't get it. He didn't understand the property. He clearly didn't understand the property from the interview that I read. He clearly didn't see the potential in sort of crossing over. And I'm not saying that every movie that you do, like, every G.I. Joe movie wouldn't have to have Optimus Prime in it. But you could make reference to things in that universe or in the Mask universe or whatever sort of other Hasbro properties kind of fit into that shared universe. And I think it could really work. In the same way that strangely Marvel, the first few movies weren't necessary, like they weren't completely banking on um doing phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. They were very much structuring all the movies as standalone movies, but allowing there to be enough reference to other characters and to sort of other aspects of the Marvel universe that the potential was there to build a universe. And I think that's kind of the path that they should take or could take. Um, if you create a movie that only works if it gets a sequel, um, it doesn't always land because you're going to leave storylines with loose ends where people are just going to complain and say like, well, I didn't understand like the ending. It didn't make any sense. So you do have to have them as standalone, but sort of incorporate aspects, I think is probably the way that I would think it should be done. But I don't know. Um, Marvel has killed it. Yep, absolutely. I think largely because Kevin Feige kind of knew what he was doing from the start. And I think that's the big thing is you kind of need to know what you're doing from the start. Because if you don't, you're kind of, you're just throwing a whole bunch of stuff at the wall to see what sticks on some level. And so far with G.I. Joe, nothing stuck. The sad thing is there's a lot of cool stuff coming out. I mean, I think this book could be pretty good. They've got a couple different games coming out that I think could be pretty good. There's another video game coming out that could be pretty good. Um, from the sounds of sort of the very small amount of stuff that people saw from that cartoon, it sounded like the designs and sort of the concept of the thing was pretty good. Um, but I wonder if there's just sort of a lack of conviction in terms of the people sort of behind these projects. I wonder if they just don't have the confidence. I wonder if there's kind of already a feeling, um, there's that sort of like sense that we've tried this so many times, like what's going to be different about this? And maybe they almost have like a defeatist attitude out of the gate. I don't know. I just don't know why they can't do it right. Um, I think they try too hard. My honest opinion is that I think they try too hard to appeal to a broader audience than just GI Joe fans. What they fail to recognize is that the stories and the characters and all that kind of stuff um, is why GI Joe fans are GI Joe fans. And what I mean to say by that is if you change all those stories and you kind of change the characters and you change the backgrounds, not only does it not interest existing GI Joe fans, it kind of alienates non GI Joe fans because they're getting like a subpar version of GI Joe. That's my personal opinion. But um, Tyler said, I think GI Joe needs to get their narrative out there. They are starting with expansion of comics. They are building a new cartoon, but the overall narratives need to be built, and the universe can take shape. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Is you have to stay true to sort of the core of what GI Joe is, and not try to update it, and not try to change it, or like I said, make it appeal to more people. There's already a fan base and a crowd for that really sort of true to the narrative and sort of the existing lore. Um, and if you screw it up, you get pushback from the existing fans, and then you kind of have no hope, right? Um, Larry says, finally saw the Snake Eyes movie. It was okay. And then he says it was a good plain movie. Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in some respects. Um, I've seen the movie a few times. I enjoy the movie. My very shorthand review of the movie though was essentially um existing ninja movie that they had a script for where they just shoehorned GI Joe into it. It didn't feel like a GI Joe movie. It didn't feel like a Snake Eyes movie. It felt like a ninja movie where they kind of plugged in, names where there was already an existing name. And then they injected it with Scarlet and Baroness to add a little bit more GI Joe than it already had. Um, but who knows? Who knows? Christian says, would love to see an animated version of the IDW run, which is more adult than the classic Marvel run. So many successful adult cartoons nowadays. That's a very good point. That's a very valid point. And it could be, it could be a Netflix show, or it could be Hulu in the States. But then I think we get most Hulu stuff on Crave in Canada here. Or Amazon. I think Amazon was sort of talking about a live action Lady J TV series. I would love to see live action. I would love to see animated too. I mean, the animated movie that they did, which was much more adult in terms of the content, was fantastic. Um, Resolute was fantastic. David saying, I wish they had continued G.I. Joe Renegade series. I think Renegades was great because they kept it nice and tight. You had your main characters in there, but you also had references. There was characters that would come in to the show and would either have, the name of an existing G.I. Joe character, whether it was sort of their given name or their code name. And it really worked. And as some of you know, but maybe not all of you know, the only reason that we didn't get a season 3 of G.I. Joe Renegades was because it was on Hasbro created their own network. The network failed and nobody picked the show up. So that was the only reason. It didn't get canceled or anything. It's just the network got canceled. Christian said, and Chuckles was a prominent character. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I would be more than happy to see Chuckles in a live action setting. Amazon has done a great job bringing Invincible to the small screen. Yes, and I mean, like I said, whether it's Amazon or Netflix or whoever, I think that small screen is probably the way to go with G.I. Joe. And then in the same way that the cartoon was sort of followed by a movie, you could have a movie, at the end of 2 seasons of a successful TV show, and you're not as committed financially, right? Because you can already sort of guesstimate what the audience might be. So, Larry says, still say they should have given Michael Bay G.I. Joe, not Transformers. His war movies are good. I think Michael Bay's time is kind of up. I think people have seen too many, quote unquote, Michael Bay movies. And I think people have just gone sour on his style a little bit. But that's just my personal opinion. Marvin says same with the Reacher series. Yeah. Jack Ryan too. It was a good series. I don't know if you guys watched that one, but it was really, really grounded, really well done, well written, decently well acted. I don't think it would be that hard to pick a couple characters. And the sort of premise that I heard, or sort of the best premise that I heard for how they could do a live action G.I. Joe series would in a way be like how they did Renegades, in the sense that you would have kind of 4 or 5 main characters who were kind of, you'd have 2 or 3 episodes where it was them all together. And then maybe episode 4, and I wouldn't do a lot of episodes in the first season. I would do, 8, 10, 12 episodes, not overcommit, not do, 40 episodes or something. But have a few episodes where you sort of establish the tone, establish the characters, sort of get a feel for what the sort of physical space that they inhabit is, in terms of world building. And then you could do it almost like the G.I. Joe Special Missions comic book, where each issue you could have sort of a specialized team, and you could introduce 1 or 2 new characters that you didn't necessarily need a backstory for. You wouldn't necessarily have to develop them as characters. You could have Scarlet and Roadblock join Iceberg and Snow Job on an Arctic mission, or Duke and Scarlet. I don't know, whoever. Duke and Lady J join Dusty and Rakondo on like a sort of jungle or desert or something. I don't know. But you could sort of pick and choose which characters fit the episode, fit the mission, sort of thing. And then from there, you just sort of see which episodes people react to, which characters people react to, and just go from there. Tyler said, Larry Hama is the George Lucas of G.I. Joe. Now find their Kevin Feige and build on that with a sprinkle of updates to a new generation without compromising what Hama has done. Yes. I do think Larry Hama is the George Lucas of G.I. Joe, but I also think that what we need isn't so much a George Lucas. George Lucas is to Star Wars as Larry Hama is to G.I. Joe. But I would say like Dave Filoni is to Star Wars what we need somebody to be to GI Joe. We need somebody that's been sort of a fan for decades, that absolutely knows the lore and sort of the characters and stuff inside out, but wants to sort of expand on it and sort of elaborate. And so I think in the same way that, you know, Filoni was sort of trained by Lucas, in a way, or was sort of his understudy for a long time. I think they need to get somebody working with Larry Hama now, because I don't think Larry Hama has a whole lot longer that he's going to want to work. So there needs to be somebody that sort of takes the reins. And I think if nobody takes over from Larry Hama, then we might have some problems with sort of the storytelling and the ongoing narrative within GI Joe. But that's just my personal opinion. I think what they need is a good director and storyteller like the Russo brothers or the John Wick director for a good start. Yes, I mean I think I think you know you could pull from so many different places, right? And that's you know I think it's, you know, everybody goes to like Michael Bay and everybody sort of goes to where they've gone before for these things, but it hasn't worked. So I think they kind of need to think outside the box a little bit. Um, you know, GI Joe needs to be a great action movie um, that has a really good sort of basis in sort of the story. Like it's, but I think what people missed out is that the GI Joe has to be a great action movie. And the part about the Snake Eyes movie that was really disappointing was the team that they had for the action sequences, that they just shot them really badly and they just kind of butchered it. But anyway, because the story was kind of shit, but it would have been passable if the action scenes were better, was what I sort of thought. Um, Facebook user, presumably Rick, says, for me, finding the right tone balance of cartoon and live action based in a grounded reality is so delicate. Absolutely right. Absolutely agree. Marvel Studios has done a great job at finding that tone for the universe. Imagine, right? You're welcome. Ha ha ha. I don't know what that part, I don't, maybe that was a response to something that I was saying or something that somebody else said, but Jonathan, I'm not sure Hama is the one. If the whole marketing was correct, Hama had a lot of input in the new Snake Eyes movie, and it was not good. And then you agree with me, there needs to be someone else. I just think there needs to be, you know, I don't think anybody's ever going to replace Larry Hama in terms of how much they're going to sort of contribute to the sort of the world building of GI Joe. But I think somebody needs to come in and kind of fill in all the blanks. I think somebody needs to come in and essentially um, you know, take over where Larry's kind of left off, and um, and sort of, you know, there needs to be there needs to be a think tank for it. I think Lucasfilm has Filoni, and he has his sort of core of world builders. He's got 4 or 5 writers and producers that they always work together, and every Star Wars project basically has to get approved by them. And I think GI Joe needs to go in that direction, but I just don't know if they know that. um, is there still a want for war type action movies in this day and age? Jonathan, I think the answer is absolutely yes. Um, but I think that GI Joe is perfectly placed in the sense that it's not. I don't think GI Joe needs to be as grounded and sort of down to earth as people think. I look at movies like, um, and I'm again, this happens every time I do these live videos. I forget all the titles of the things that are in my head. Was it called Edge of Tomorrow, where the guy kept waking up in the same day and had to like figure it out? Or was that the one with? But then there was also the one with Chris Pratt where he'd travel into the future. Like I think there needs to be a certain not even sci-fi aspect, but kind of futuristic aspect. Like I think that's an integral part to GI Joe. Um, like I think that GI Joe needs to exist in a world that's not our world in a weird way. Um, and the reason that I say that is because it needs to be detached in a way from reality, because I think, what you're suggesting, right? Like realistic, real world, gritty, action war movies that are bound by sort of the limitations of physics and stuff like that. I don't think that's GI Joe. GI Joe is laser guns. GI Joe is laser guns and weather dominators. It has to have that. It has to have that sort of element of um, sci-fi fantasy, or it just doesn't work. Which is why I didn't completely hate the giant snakes in the Snake Eyes movie and the magical sort of crystal that shot whatever it was. I thought those worked. I thought the magical elements worked. I thought the movie was was just not well made. Um, Rick said that wasn't me. So well, now I'm really confused, and that's why if you could go to streamyard.com/Facebook and allow it to show your name so that I know who's talking to me. Um, David, I think it would be cool if they tried different genres for GI Joe movies and shows in the same way as Marvel has done with their movies and series. Yes, absolutely. I think you have to start somewhere, and I think they made the attempt with the Snake Eyes movie. I just think it was a little bit misguided. Tyler's got a question for you for the group. Could you do GI Joe like what Marvel is doing on Disney Plus? Lower tier characters on limited series runs, and then those connect to a bigger movie world with the bigger characters, or just do away with movies altogether right now. um well, I'll answer right away. I absolutely think that you could do that. I absolutely think that limited runs, like I said, 6, 8, 10, 12 episodes, like keep it. I would be happy with 6 episode story arcs, and uh try a few of them out, use different characters, use different styles of animation, or do alternate animated and live action. I think seeing what sticks in movie form is really risky because it's way bigger budget. um I think you could get a lot of value from doing a TV series. And I think in terms of world building, you're essentially creating a market too. Like if your cartoon is decent, you can build a market, you can build a crowd that'll go to the theater and watch a movie. I think starting with a movie and then thinking that you're gonna hit that out of the park and then people are gonna demand more, I think is a little bit backwards. The sort of fault in the plan for GI Joe is that there's way more people reading Marvel comic books that would go to a Marvel movie, so they already had that built-in crowd that way. GI Joe does not have that built-in crowd. They're gonna have to create the audience, and I think they just don't quite realize that. Um, Jonathan, I mean, I get. So Jonathan says those movies are futuristic against aliens, though Transformers, the bad guys are other robots with some bad humans. I agree, having the bad guys be a human terrorist organizations are not something that sits well nowadays in a marketing campaign. Um, so don't label them as terrorists. But I mean, I don't know. I disagree. I think I think there's a market for that. I think people are just without getting too political about it, I think people just get too woke. I think people want those movies. People enjoy those movies. Um, good versus evil is not something that's ever going to go away. So to not make movies like that doesn't make sense to me, because it's going to exist whether you think that you're going to wish it out of existence or not. It's just not going to happen. Um, And if people don't want to watch it, they won't go. But I think those movies, good versus evil, action movies, I think they still land. And I think, if you change I think people try to change the time or the place or the whatever, right? Like even humans against aliens, it's still essentially like a good versus evil. Even, Autobots versus Decepticons, it's still sort of a good versus evil. Um, you can call it whatever you want, or you could avoid calling it what you want. People still want it. People still want it. I don't believe for a second that doesn't land. I think it's still viable. I think it's still a viable option. David, I mean, there you go. David mentions Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier was essentially, American heroes versus a terrorist organization. Um, Captain America fought Hydra, which was essentially a terrorist organization, and those did arguably pretty well. But yes, David, getting to sort of what point you were making, Winter Soldier was a political thriller. Ant-Man was a heist film. Winter Soldier was also kind of a buddy cop thing, too, in a weird way. And then you think of the tone of like Guardians of the Galaxy, which is completely removed from like any of the other Marvel movies. Um, Thor Ragnarok was fantastic, and it was super funny. You could do all of those things, right? And I think that's what you need to do. But they get away with doing that because they already have the shared universe. I think that's sort of you have to have a phase one before you can have, a Ragnarok and a Guardians of the Galaxy, and sort of start doing all those slightly different outside the box things. Rick, yes, it's now, you're now Van City Shields, but I will know that that's you, Rick, so that works. Larry, that's a good point. We'll see how the Halo TV show does. Problem is, can we even watch that in Canada? It's on that Columbia network, right? Can we see that? I don't even know. I don't know Halo well enough, and I mean, if I come across it, if I can get it on Amazon Prime or Netflix or Crave, I'd be down to watch it because I think it looks interesting. I don't know anything about that lore though. Yeah, Nigel says take Falcon and Winter Soldier. The ideal model could have been a Joe-esque story. Yes, absolutely. You could have put two GI Joes in there. Again, somebody mentioned Chuckles. I think it might have been Christian mentioned Chuckles. I think Chuckles is a perfect gateway for GI Joe because he's an undercover guy, right? You can do a whole GI Joe movie without sort of doing a GI Joe movie. You could do an espionage movie, right? You could do a spy movie. And the treatment that I've heard for that movie has a lot of magical elements, and I think it could really, really sort of kickstart that world because you could essentially create intrigue into sort of what's next, what's around the corner, and then everybody would want Chuckles, and then I'd be super happy. We'll get to the last couple comments here, and then I'm going to move on to the second thing that I want to talk about. But Tyler says, one more question for the group. Is there a book out there that collects the entire G.I. Joe canon, characters, storylines, and breakdowns? To the best of my knowledge, no. There is the G.I. Joe comics from the 80s called Order of Battle. It was 4 issues, and it's essentially like all the characters, and I think it might have vehicles as well. I have it, but I can't even remember. But in terms of like a collected, collated sort of thing like that, not really. Not really. To the best of my knowledge. Although there is a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter might have closed. So you might have missed out. But there's a Kickstarter. Carson from 3D Joe's is compiling all of the art from G.I. Joe. So you'll actually get most of the lore that way because it'll have all the file cards. And it'll have all the blueprints and stuff, I think. So it should have essentially everything. But not storylines. I guess just the comic books have the storyline. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm surprised somebody hasn't done that, but I don't know where they would start and where they would end is the problem because you've got, hundreds of episodes of the cartoons. You've got hundreds of comic books from different publishers. Then you've got all the toys, and you've got the movies, and it's sort of like, which what is the other thing with GI Joe. I was trying to explain this to somebody who had sort of gotten into the classified series but didn't have a background with GI Joe. What is considered canon with GI Joe? There's so many different people that have worked on it over the years. That everybody sort of has their own canon that they've pieced together from sort of all the stuff that's out there. Oh, Jonathan says we can buy Paramount Plus in Canada for like $5 a month or something like that. Oh, okay. I already have too many other subscriptions, so I think I might skip that. But let me know how Halo is. I'd be curious to know. Jonathan, I agree with David. Winter Soldier was amazing. It was one movie, though. It was not a movie. It was a show. He's talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was a show. As much as it made a big change in the Marvel storyline, it was one story. The G.I. Joe universe is built around that story happening all the time. Well, I kind of disagree with that. I think that G.I. Joe is mission-based, right? So there's always Cobra and there's always G.I. Joe. But every time G.I. Joe has to face off against Cobra, it's a new mission. It's the mass device. It's the weather dominator. They had in Resolute, I can't remember what it was called, but they had that satellite that interrupted all sort of telecommunication. Like it's very easy to sort of serialize that, and I think that's the way they need to do it. I don't think you have to have an overarching thing with GI Joe, being that it was based on a cartoon and based on a comic book. Most of the storylines in the comic book were, an issue. Then you had, the ones that were 2 or 3, and then you had sort of overarching storylines as well. And I think you can do that. You can do the overarching stuff, but you need to have everything be contained. You can't have loose ends. You can't have a movie that, has a sequel until you have 3 or 4 movies in the bag. And that's what Marvel did, right? They did Iron Man, they did Thor, they did Captain America. And I feel like there was a 4th one. I think Iron Man 2 came out before they did Avengers. And then Avengers was sort of the teen movie. And then that was phase 1. And then phase 2, they got a little bit crazier and the universe expanded. And then phase 3, it expanded more. And I think that's kind of how they have to do it. But that's just my personal opinion. Feel free to completely disregard anything that I say because I'm just an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. And yeah, everybody's saying Paramount Plus is available in Canada. Yeah, I'm not gonna sign up for it just to get Halo. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to sort of chat about. Now I'm just pulling this tab up from Action Figure 411. So this is just essentially a visual guide of sort of all the figures that are up, available, and sort of upcoming. Now it doesn't include waves that we've seen digital renders for, and haven't seen the physical figures yet. But I wanted to talk about pre-orders, and I wanted to talk about, or I wanted to sort of get a feel for what you guys think in terms of we've discussed sort of pricing and prepaying versus sort of paying when it shows up. I'm curious what you guys think about waiting for figures. A lot of people haven't gotten Barbecue yet because he hasn't landed in Canada. A lot of people didn't get their Bats and Alley Vipers yet, but then sort of everything else on that list nobody's gotten yet. And we're patiently waiting to get our figures. And you can see like these are all the figures that are available. These are all the figures that are sort of up for pre-order. And of the standard release ones, I think you can get all of them from Mike at eCollectibles. So if you haven't gotten them, get an order in now, because I think the problem is people are just sort of thinking that these will pop up and they'll just pick them up when they show up. But I think as soon as they pop up, they're going to go really, really quick. So Um, but what I wanted to know was, um, does the wait bother you guys or not? Are you happy to wait? My take is, I'm much happier to get a pre-order in and know that I've sort of locked the figure in and that I don't have to hunt, that I don't have to, hit Walmart and Toys R Us and, wherever else. I would much rather get my order in and sit back and relax. And I get my orders in day one. Like the the moment those pre-orders go up, I get my order in so that I've got my order in as early as I can, so that hopefully, when the physical figures come in, I might be in that first shipment that gets shipped out to customers. But I was just curious what you guys think. Do you guys buy as soon as they pop up? Do you kind of wait until they start popping up in store? Um, is a longer wait kind of hard on you? I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm excited to get all these figures, regardless of when they show up. I'm the eternal optimist in the sense that, like, I'm just happy that they exist. I'll be happy to get them whenever. If I'm the last one to get them, I'll still be happy because I'll still be happy to sort of get the figures, right? Do you guys the sort of part B to that question is, if you don't get them first, if you don't get them right away, do you feel, in some way defeated or something like that? For me, I don't. I'm kind of lucky enough, where I've gotten things quickly, so maybe that's why I'm not like that. But I guess the flip side of that is, if I know they're coming, I'm not fussed. I'm not bothered if they're behind schedule or whatever. Larry, pre-order because to find them in Quebec is crazy. I think to find them anywhere has been crazy. I think it's gonna get easier, not right away. I mean, I think there's a lot of issues in terms of product getting from A to B that hasn't been resolved yet, and I don't think it's gonna get resolved very quickly. I think it's gonna be a slow and steady kind of thing, but being able to pre-order is nice because it takes away the worry or anxiety of not being able to find a figure. That being said, the wait has been more than usual, but that is kind of out of our control. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Is that the fact that I've paid for an item, means that I'm gonna get it. It's just a matter of time, and then the box shows up, and I'm happy. And whether that's the on the release day, or a week later, or a month later, or a couple months later. I just got my movie Scarlet. She is a fantastic figure, and I'm glad that I didn't cancel it. I'm glad that I sort of waited. I'm glad that I had the patience. Fantastic figure, absolutely fantastic figure. And if you didn't get the movie version of Scarlet and you didn't get a Kiko, I strongly recommend you go out and get those figures, because they're both really great figures. Jonathan, I used to want them right now, but with the shipping schedules kind of going back to normal, I am okay with waiting as long as they aren't exclusives. Yes, I agree. I think, the exclusive thing is always going to be a pain in the butt. Especially for us, because if the exclusives are Toys R Us, their website is terrible and their pricing is terrible and getting worse. And personally, I don't find GameStop that much better. Their pricing's better, but they're at least for the GameStop, the GameStops that I have access to, the customer service is brutal, and the online is not much better. I always have a hard time finding things. I always have a hard time figuring out whether my orders are in or not. But yeah. Dean, I'd love to hear about something, then find it in a store a few weeks, months later. Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the dream, right? I've said this before, like finding something on the shelf um, really, you get very different feels from that, right? Like there's way more of a sort of a nostalgic aspect to that. I would even go so far as to say that finding something on the shelf that you didn't know about is even better, but it's just not the world we live in. I guess that's the thing, is that, like, I don't get hung up on how it was. I wish it was like that. I wish I could walk into Toys R Us and there was an like, I wish that the graphic that's on the screen there, I wish that's what the shelf looked like at Toys R Us, right? Like, I wish it was pegs and pegs and pegs and just tons of figures, and there was always the whole wave, and you would just go in and get what you wanted. And, you'd buy one and go home and enjoy that figure because you knew you'd go back and you could just get the next one, and there was never sort of the issue of missing out, or of exclusives, or of a production run that you missed out on, or anything like that. But that's just not the world we live in, unfortunately. It's the same as I was talking. We got some family in town, and we were talking about Saturday morning cartoons. Well, there's no need for Saturday morning cartoons anymore, because kids have access to whatever cartoon they want 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That aspect of the nostalgia, I think, is maybe gone. So I guess that's, as much as I can lament that doesn't exist anymore, I try not to let it um, diminish how much fun these figures are, and how excited I am to get more GI Joe characters and more GI Joe figures. So yeah, I've only found figures in a store over 2.5 years, maybe three times. So I just have to get used to pre-orders. Though I have pre-orders from some distributors take a long time or get canceled altogether. So pre-orders don't feel like a guarantee to me. Um, I've been pretty lucky. The only one that I had an issue with, and I've learned my lesson, was Amazon canceling my Arctic Assault Storm Shadow. That's the only one that I had an issue with. Um, but maybe I have different strategies for how I buy and where I buy and when I buy. But I've been sort of very happy with sort of where I've been ordering. I'm now ordering all my standard release stuff. As I said, I'll be completely transparent. I've been ordering all my standard release stuff through Mike at eCollectibles. Great customer service, great communication. He and I chat, pretty much daily. So I even know when most figures are coming out. Um, in terms of release dates too, which is a little bit of insider information, which I'm not at liberty to share. I will tell you this much: there's a few coming pretty soon, sooner than people think. Um, but yeah, I mean, there is no guarantee until you have it in hand, I guess, ultimately. But I guess you sort of order from where you trust is going to deliver, and then wait. But yeah, there is no guarantee until it's in hand. That's true. Um, I think more and more we've seen, though, that if you don't get the first wave, there's going to be more coming. So it's kind of good in that respect. But Larry, it is an amazing feeling when you find stuff in the wild. Yes, it is. There's no denying that. And for a long time, that was what was driving me to go to Toys R Us like every day. Just the chance that I might find something, even if I didn't need it anymore, I would just find it and let people know, buy it for other people. So yeah, Christian says, I like to pre-order and know that I'm going to get the figure. I live in a small town and don't see figures here hardly ever. Yeah, and I think that's true for most people. Um, as Canadians too, we don't have Targets. We don't have nearly as many sort of stores to buy these at. We don't even have as many toy stores, right? Like, a lot of the major sort of American cities have a toy store where, like, the toy store will hunt down figures and buy them. Um, and you'll pay, $5 or $10 more, but you'll still be able to get it through a toy store. We just don't have that. I do find it frustrating that we rarely get the exclusives in Canada. Watching lots of people online talk about Lady J and Baroness being released at Walmart, but Walmart.ca has nothing. Nothing yet. I'm hoping that we will. I guess there's no guarantee. We won't know until it's in store because Walmart Canada's website's about as good as Toys R Us Canada's website. But yeah, I agree. The exclusives are a pain in the butt because not only do we not know, but like I would love if Hasbro could tell us. I would love if Hasbro said, "Oh, these are a Target exclusive in the US and they're going to be a Toys R Us exclusive in Canada." Like even that knowledge would just sort of give us some peace of mind in a way, right? But they don't because I don't know. Maybe one day they'll get to the point where they realize that we're here too. I think it's a numbers thing too, though. I think the units that they're selling in the US are far superior to what they're selling in Canada, and so we're kind of an afterthought, for better or worse. I mean, it is what it is. We're Canadians. We just have to kind of live with that, I guess. If you pre-order from the smaller business stores, there is a good chance your pre-orders will not get canceled. Worst cases, they get delayed, but usually those small stores will take extra pre-orders like big places like Amazon. Yes, absolutely. Jonathan, yes, you're absolutely right. They do their orders based on the pre-orders, and so it's usually pretty good. I've not known of any of the classified figures not getting pre-orders fulfilled through the Canadian retailers, the online retailers. But like you said, sometimes there's a delay just because the smaller retailers just don't have the buying power. They can't buy. Again, it's a reason to get your pre-orders in early. They base their orders on pre-orders, and if they get 10 pre-orders and 30 people are just waiting till they get in stock, if there's 10 pre-orders, they're going to maybe order 15 figures, 20 figures. So the extra that they're going to order isn't going to cover all the people looking for it. So that's my 2 cents. Larry said Amazon Canada sucks for exclusives being canceled, and Jonathan agreed, and I will agree as well. Amazon Canada, to be honest, I don't buy anything from Amazon Canada anymore unless it's in stock. And even when it's in stock, I got an Amazon order. I ordered a couple things just before Christmas, hoping that they would arrive in time for Christmas. They didn't, so I went and bought them elsewhere, thankfully, because when the package arrived, I opened my package, which was meant to be a book and a Lego set, and it was a 3-pack of Under Armour socks. And it took me nearly 2 months to get a refund because when I sent the socks back, they thought that I had replaced the items that they shipped with the socks because they didn't understand that I just sent them to the package that was the wrong package back. I don't love Amazon. In fact, I quite dislike Amazon, but I thought I was going to get those things quick and easy, and it didn't happen anyway. So, lesson learned. Anyways, guys, that's all I had. That was sort of all I had to discuss. We're at about 58 minutes. I said we were going to go for about an hour. Questions, comments, anything you guys want to chat about for a couple minutes before I sign off, before I log off here for the week? Jonathan, my wish would be that exclusives in Canada be done through the hobby stores instead of Walmart. Wishful thinking. Yes, it is. The unfortunate reality is that the numbers don't line up for Hasbro. Essentially what it comes down to is that the exclusives go through Walmart or Toys R Us just because their buying power is so much more substantial. If you combined all of the online retailers, I think they wouldn't be buying in the numbers that Toys R Us is or that Walmart is. And so that's why they get them. Now, that being said, I have seen certain things pop up at some of the online retailers once in a while. If Walmart or Toys R Us doesn't take, say they order 30,000 units of something and they only sell through 10,000 and they don't take all of their product, Hasbro Canada does offer it to other retailers, so it does pop up from time to time. It's also why you see some of that Hasbro stuff popping up at like Marshalls and Winners and stuff like that. But oh, Christian, how is the diorama going? It's going. I've been kind of stalled. I had family in town. I had to finish up a couple other things. I also decided to reorganize my office a little bit because it was a disaster. I had so much stuff here. I had to get some of it out of here and into kind of more storage. I'm still working. I got to sell a bunch of stuff. Is the truth. But I have started on it. I've cut some foam, but it just looks like pink foam right now. It's not that exciting to see. Maybe for next week I'll snap a couple pictures of what I've got and I can sort of show an update. Maybe I'll do a weekly diorama update if there's any change. There is some change because it's not just that shelf that I showed the other day doesn't have anything on it that was on it that when I did that video, and now has pink foam on it. But it's literally just rough cut pink foam. There's nothing. There's no detail. There's no to look at it, you wouldn't know that I was building a diorama. It just looks like a bunch of pink foam that's been cut up. But thank you for asking. Kind of keeps me motivated to keep doing it if people actually are paying attention. Because if everybody forgets, I can just stop doing it and leave it. I want to get it done though, because it'll make it so much easier to display figures and do some more photography of my toys. Not photography, taking pictures of my toys is probably a better way to say it. I've got so many toys that are just so cool, and so I've decided that I'm gonna start taking pictures of them. I even opened, I don't know, I have a new Instagram account that's just going to be pictures of my toys. Why? I don't know. I kind of got bullied into it, to be honest. Larry, I have to work on my displays. I've been chatting with a few of you guys recently, actually, and a few people have said that they're sort of working on dioramas or displays or what have you. It's fun, man. I mean, that's the thing, is that like you go buy a couple pieces of foam and a good sharp X-Acto knife and some paints at Michael's, and for less than $100, you can do some pretty cool stuff. It's kind of a cost-effective way to sort of add interest and sort of add fun to your collection, is my opinion. And it takes up time. The more time I'm doing, I'm working on a dio or customizing something, the less time I'm sort of scouring over Facebook, reading, the comments of trolls and hearing all the nasty, toxic stuff that I don't want to hear. So, yeah, Dean, having so much fun building stuff, working on a snow dial. Dean, you've been doing it for a while. I think you started a little bit before I did. Your stuff looks great. I know that I don't know if David's still watching, but I know that David's kind of working on some display stuff, and we were chatting about diorama stuff earlier today. I know a few of you guys are doing it, and it's just fun. It just adds another layer. Like I said, it adds another aspect to your collection and to your collecting. Where when we're sort of in a period like this where there's not a lot of stuff coming out, you can kind of fill that time with it's a creative endeavor. I just think it's fun to do too. And my kids get into it too. My kids, it's actually under my desk right now. We're painting a house/barn. So that's fun too. Yep. Absolutely. That's absolutely, Dean, you look at it and say, I made that, and smile. And it's rewarding. Like I said, it's a creative endeavor. I'm not a terribly creative guy. I don't paint. I'm not a musician. I'm not, diorama is probably the most creative thing I'm going to do, or customizing figures that already exist. I'm not sculpting anything. I'm just adding some dye or paint or swapping parts. Diorama genuinely feels like you're creating something out of nothing, especially when you're at Home Depot buying insulation foam. it always feels really weird. I'm buying insulation foam, and people probably think that I'm, building something that is a 1-to-1 scale, but I am in fact building something that is like a 1-to-10 scale or 6-inch scale. So it's just kind of a funny little world. I'm buying all these. I go through. I walk around and I look at things and I think to myself, could I make that into something that it's not in a 6-inch scale diorama? Like I look at wires and tubes and just garbage that most people wouldn't think twice of, and I'm like, I think I could use that for something. Dean, literally only been learning all of these skills for the last year and a bit. Otherwise, I had done none of it. I'm the exact same way. It was only fairly recently that I started getting into it. My daughter sort of asked for, she wanted a house for Marvel Legends figures, and I just sort of threw something together, and it was so easy, and she was so happy. It looks like trash. It's garbage. It's the worst. But she loves it. She still plays with it, and so from there, I was like, okay, well, what could I do? And so that's, on over either shoulder, I've got my sort of Cobra. On this side, I have sort of the start of my GI Joe pit, or sort of the first version, and I've got sort of a Cobra base on this side, and it's literally just like some paper glued onto some cardboard and kind of 3D'd up a little bit, and then you go from there, and then you do that project, and you go, well, that wasn't so hard. And then you start buying foam board and painting it and black washing it and texturizing it and stuff, and before you know it, my wife came into the office today and she goes, oh, that's pretty good, did you do that one? And I was like, yeah. Yes, that is honestly the problem, is that Jonathan says, I think I spent too much time in the dollar store thinking, what can I do with this stuff? Yes, sometimes we try too hard. Sometimes we see something and we go, I'm sure I could use it for something, and we just can't. Sometimes you just can't make it work. Sometimes you just, it looks like it would work, and it just doesn't always work. Anyways, guys, on that note, we are nearly at 110 now, so we will leave it at that. Again, thank you for joining me. Always a pleasure. Always fun to chat with you guys. Yeah, Rick, I noticed. Yeah, you posted that you have a bunch of styrofoam from a big screen TV. If you're in Vancouver and you're thinking about sort of getting into it, that's a great place to start. Is take the foam that comes from an appliance, or comes from a TV or whatever. Start with that. There's some very quick and easy ways to kind of manipulate it to make it something that it absolutely wasn't. And like I said, every time you do one, you sort of see the potential and you see the possibility for the next one. So, I painted those brick walls, or I painted that. Okay, so I painted the brick. Well, there's a brick wall there that I painted first, and it was not very good. And then I started on this second one, and it was much better. And then I used a new technique on this, and then I applied it to this, and it made it look better than it was. I also have a floor, which you can't see, which I think looks pretty cool. It was the third piece that I did. It's probably the best piece that I did. So every time, you're learning, you're adapting, you're sort of, if you sort of apply one more technique each time, before you know it, you'll be banging the stuff out, and it's just super fun and very rewarding. But as I was saying, thank you guys for joining me. Always a pleasure. Always fun to chat with you guys. Always good to hear your opinions. And I'm like I always say, this is everybody's group. It's not just mine. So if anybody wants to jump on the video with me, as soon as I post that I'm doing one, comment or message me or whatever. StreamYard's super easy. I would say, if you're watching this, you probably have all the equipment you need to be on here, and it's super easy and it's super casual. And to be honest, a lot of people kind of go, I'd be too nervous. When you're on this side, I can only see myself, so it doesn't really feel like anybody's watching, if that makes sense. But anyway, on that note, we're just coming up on an hour, 10 minutes. I'm going to say thank you again for joining me. Have a great day. Have a great week, and we will chat again very soon.